What kind of queen could unite a divided kingdom, conquer a centuries-old enemy, and send ships across unknown oceans, while also igniting one of history's darkest inquisitions? This is the story of Isabella of Castile, the queen who changed the world forever. In the late 15th century, as medieval Europe stood on the threshold of a new dawn, one woman's vision would alter the destiny of nations. She was a queen, a warrior, a reformer, and a ruler whose decisions launched empires and cast shadows that stretch across centuries. Her name was Isabella of Castile, and her reign changed the world forever. The curtain rises on a Europe in transformation. Feudal kingdoms struggle for power, the Renaissance spreads new ideas, and religion shapes politics as never before. In this age of upheaval, few could have imagined that a girl born in relative obscurity would become one of the most powerful monarchs in European history. Origins of a Queen, 1451 to 1468. Isabella was born on April 22, 1451, in Madrigal de las Altas Torres. Her father, King John II of Castile, ruled one of the largest kingdoms of Iberia, yet his reign was fragile, plagued by weak leadership and noble unrest. Isabella's mother, Isabella of Portugal, struggled with mental illness, a burden that would haunt the family. When John II died in 1454, the crown passed to his son from his first marriage, Henry IV. The young Isabella, only 3 years old, was sent with her mother and brother Alfonso to live in Arevalo. Their life was modest, more monastic than royal. They lived not in marble palaces but in simple halls, where religious devotion and discipline became daily routine. It was in these years of obscurity that Isabella developed the character that would later define her reign. She was deeply pious, spending hours in prayer and scripture. She also cultivated a sharp mind, reading widely for a girl of her time. Unlike many princesses who grew accustomed to courtly luxury, Isabella's childhood gave her resilience, humility, and a keen awareness of political uncertainty. Even in youth, she displayed an independence of spirit. Surrounded by instability, she learned patience, caution, and the ability to wait for the right moment to act, traits that would make her one of the most formidable rulers of her age. A kingdom in crisis. By the 1460s, Castile was a kingdom on the edge of collapse. Its nobles defied royal authority, enriching themselves at the expense of the crown. Corruption rotted the court, and rival factions divided the realm. At the center of this storm was King Henry IV, Isabella's half-brother. His reign was marked by indecision, extravagance, and scandal. The greatest controversy surrounded his daughter, Princess Joanna, later nicknamed La Beltraneja. Many believe she was not Henry's legitimate child, but the product of his queen's affair with the courtier Beltrán de la Cueva. This claim, whether true or not, poisoned Castilian politics. Into this chaos stepped Isabella. At just 16, she was summoned to court. For the first time, she confronted the intrigue and danger of high politics. Foreign powers saw her as a valuable prize, and marriage proposals flooded in. From Portugal, from France, even from England. Each proposal carried not only personal stakes, but geopolitical consequences. But Isabella was no pawn. She negotiated carefully, refusing to be forced into an alliance that would weaken her position. When Henry tried to marry her off to a Portuguese noble against her will, she defied him, a dangerous act that risked exile or worse. Her defiance revealed a truth about Isabella's character. She would never allow others to dictate her fate. In a time when most royal women were treated as bargaining chips, Isabella carved her own path, earning respect and fear among Castile's political elite. Marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon, 1469. In October 1469, Isabella made the decision that would alter Iberian history. She secretly married Ferdinand of Aragon, heir to one of Spain's most powerful crowns. The marriage was a daring gamble. Conducted in Valladolid, it defied Henry IV's wishes, risking excommunication from the church and rebellion at home. But Isabella saw what others missed. Ferdinand was not just a husband, but a partner. Together, their union bound Castile and Aragon, two kingdoms that, though still independent, would now be ruled side by side. This was revolutionary. Medieval Europe rarely saw women ruling as equals. Yet Isabella demanded and received an agreement that recognized her authority alongside Ferdinand's. The two would govern jointly, their signatures required on all royal decrees. But the union sparked civil war. Supporters of La Beltraneja challenged Isabella's right to the throne. The conflict culminated in the Battle of Toro, 1476. Though militarily indecisive, it became a propaganda victory for Isabella and Ferdinand. With noble support swinging to her side, Isabella was crowned Queen of Castile and Ferdinand her co-sovereign. Their marriage was not without tensions. Both were strong-willed, and Ferdinand often sought greater dominance. Yet their partnership proved remarkably effective. Isabella brought discipline, vision, and iron will. Ferdinand contributed military acumen and political cunning. Together they became the Catholic monarchs, the architects of Spain's future. Reforming a troubled realm. Castile in the 1470s was a kingdom weakened by decades of corruption and noble dominance. Isabella understood that without reform, her monarchy would never hold power. Her first priority was to reassert royal authority. She curtailed the power of unruly nobles, dismantling their private armies and reabsorbing lands into the crown. No longer would barons defy the monarchy as if they were kings in their own right. Second, she reformed the justice system, creating more centralized courts that could not be so easily corrupted by local lords. Justice would now flow from the crown, not the whims of the aristocracy. Third, she founded the Santa Hermandad, a national militia designed to bring order to the countryside. These brotherhoods patrolled the roads, protected travelers, and punished banditry. For the first time, ordinary subjects could look to the crown for protection. She also tackled finances with determination. By enforcing stricter tax collection and curbing extravagance, Isabella stabilized Castile's treasury, giving her the resources to pursue her larger ambitions. Her reforms were not merely administrative. They transformed Castile from a fractured feudal state into a disciplined monarchy. It was this foundation of order and stability that allowed her to dream of conquering Granada and of sending ships into uncharted seas. The Granada War, 1482 to 1492, the Reconquista, the centuries-long Christian effort to reclaim Iberia from Muslim rule, reached its climax during Isabella's reign. In 1482, she and Ferdinand launched the campaign against the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada, the last Muslim stronghold in Spain. It would take 10 brutal years of sieges, battles, and attrition. Isabella did not remain in the safety of her palaces. She traveled with the armies, overseeing supplies, organizing logistics, and even visiting the front lines. Soldiers drew inspiration from her presence, seeing in her not just a queen, but a leader who shared their hardships. The war was marked by dramatic episodes. The construction of the Great War Camp, Santa Fe outside Granada, symbolized Isabella's determination, a permanent base that made clear the war would continue until victory. Finally, in January 1492, Granada surrendered. The last Muslim ruler, Boabdil, handed over the keys of the Alhambra. The Christian cross was raised over the city, and the Reconquista was complete. This was more than a military triumph. It was a symbolic moment, the end of Muslim Spain after nearly 800 years. For Isabella, it was proof of divine favor, a sign that God had chosen her to unite Iberia under the Catholic faith. Her prestige soared. Across Europe, Isabella was hailed as a warrior queen, a ruler who had achieved what generations before her had only dreamed. A new world beckons. 1492 was not only the year Granada fell, it was also the year Isabella made one of the most consequential decisions in history. An ambitious Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus sought her patronage for a daring voyage. He believed he could reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic. Most advisors dismissed his plan as folly. His calculations seemed flawed, his promises unrealistic. Yet Isabella saw opportunity. Perhaps it was her instinct for risk, perhaps her desire to expand Christendom. But she agreed to fund Columbus's voyage. In October 1492, Columbus landed on islands unknown to Europeans. He believed he had reached the Indies, but in fact he had stumbled upon the Americas. The consequences were staggering. Spain would soon become the first global empire, stretching across continents and oceans. Wealth from the New World, silver, gold, and new crops, would pour into Iberia, transforming Europe's economy. But the legacy was double-edged. Colonization brought conquest, enslavement, and devastation to native peoples. For Isabella, Columbus's success was a triumph. For millions in the Americas, it marked the beginning of centuries of suffering. In that moment, Isabella's gamble forever changed the map of the world. Faith, power, and the Spanish Inquisition. Isabella's devotion to the Catholic faith was unyielding, and it shaped some of the darkest aspects of her reign. In 1478, with papal approval, she and Ferdinand established the Spanish Inquisition. Its goal was to enforce religious orthodoxy, especially among conversos, Jews and Muslims who had converted to Christianity but were suspected of secretly practicing their old religions. The Inquisition became infamous for its secret trials, harsh interrogations, and executions. Fear spread across Castile as neighbors accused one another of heresy. In 1492, Isabella issued the Edict of Expulsion, forcing Spain's Jews, some of the most educated and skilled members of society, to either convert, flee, or face persecution. In 1502, similar laws targeted Muslims in Castile, leaving only outwardly Christian subjects. These policies created religious unity, but at terrible human cost. Entire communities were uprooted. Centuries of Jewish and Muslim culture in Spain were erased. Economically, Spain lost some of its brightest minds. Culturally, diversity gave way to strict conformity. To Isabella, these acts were expressions of faith and duty. To history, they remain among the most tragic legacies of her reign. Final years and legacy, 1504. In her later years, Isabella's strength was tested by grief. She buried several of her children, including her heir, Prince Juan, and faced political instability as dynastic marriages linked her family to thrones across Europe. Despite these sorrows, she remained devoted to her vision of a strong, united Spain. She continued to oversee matters of governance, the Inquisition, and the beginnings of colonial administration. On November 26, 1504, Isabella died in Medina del Campo at the age of 53. In her will, she spoke of justice, piety, and her desire for the union between Castile and Aragon to endure. Her reign had transformed Castile from a fractured medieval state into the foundation of a global empire. She was hailed as Isabella the Catholic by the Pope, remembered as a warrior, a reformer, and a queen of immense willpower. Yet her legacy is complex. She united Spain and launched its golden age, but she also set in motion the Inquisition, forced expulsions, and colonial conquest. History remembers her not in black and white, but in shades of triumph and tragedy. Queen Isabella I of Castile was a woman of her time, devout, determined, and unyielding. She was both a unifier and a divider, a visionary and a zealot. She set sail the ships that connected continents, but also lit the fires of persecution. Her reign reshaped her kingdom, her faith, and the world itself. Isabella of Castile, the queen who changed history forever.
Please subscribe and look for more documentaries at Swords and Shadows.